Chapter 242. This is just the beginning, and the bonus isn't much. When we stand on the national stage in the future, every professional player will get a corresponding bonus from the league, so take it. Fujio chuckled and looked at Shui Yaoyao with a look that said, "Look, this money can only be used to its full potential by you. Rich people like us don't need any bonus at all." Shui Yaoyao understood that Highness Jio was looking for a suitable way to make her accept the money. She lowered her head and put the card away. Her voice was a little low. What are you thanking me for? It's what I should do." Feng Shang also came over at this time, and smiled with his eyes squinted. Our team only has one girl, so she'll be the team pet from now on. Everyone has to give in to her. The rest of the members of the Supreme Alliance completely agreed with his words, especially the commentator Lin Feng, who was Yin Hu's partner today. He grabbed Shui Yaoyao's arm. "Girl Yaoyao, your arrival finally proves that the Supreme Alliance isn't a gathering place for monks. We also have a girl, and we are straight men with a normal sexual orientation. Those rotten rumors in the outside world will definitely fall apart. My chances of getting a girlfriend in the future won't be as bad as it is now." As he said this, Lin Feng took out a small mirror and looked at himself. "You're so handsome, I'd be letting myself down if I didn't get a girlfriend. My spring is finally coming." Yin Hu sneered, raised his hand and pressed the mirror down. He only said 2 words to him. "Wake up." Lin Feng was furious. He grabbed him and ravaged him, but it was like scratching an itch on Yin Hu's body. Shui Yaoyao really thought that they were a good match. Why would he need a girlfriend? But she wouldn't say this out loud. Fujio raised her hand and put it on the back of Shui Yaoyao's chair. "Let me make this clear, senior brothers, don't do anything to Yaoyao." The team members heard this and started jeering. "Hey, what do you mean? Are you declaring your sovereignty? I brought her here, so of course I have to protect her." When Fujio said this, she was still smiling seductively. She didn't notice that Qin Mo, who was standing behind her, was looking at her. That pair of deep, pure black eyes gradually became cold after hearing this conversation. Even the way he held the phone was different from before. His fingers paused, and his raised eyebrows were filled with coldness. Secretary Liang stood at the side and shuddered for no reason. When he wanted to see his CEO's expression clearly, Qin Mo had already walked over. His voice was calm. "What do you guys want to eat for the first gathering tonight? Tell Secretary Liang and ask him to book a place." Whenever Supreme Alliance had a new member, they would have a feast to celebrate. This was a tradition that happened every year. "I want to eat hot pot." "Hot pot again? Can't you be more creative?" "As long as there's meat, I'm not picky. Do you want a barbecue? No matter how many I roast, I won't be able to feed you. You are just a pig." "Are you stupid? It's not like we're at the beach. There are waiters roasting for us." "Alright, I forgot. Let's eat barbecued meat." "Barbecued meat with beer. We must have a dozen." With that, Lin Feng turned to ask Fujio, "Little Spade, can you drink?" "Of course." Fujio licked her thin lips. "You can have a dozen Budweiser." Chapter 243. Not bad. Fujio was still modest. Secretary Liang thought about a certain someone who went to nightclubs every day, and a certain someone who was kicked out of a nightclub because he was a country bumpkin. He fell silent. "Young Master Jio, your glorious past can't be simply described as just okay." The more Lin Feng talked, the more excited he became. He wanted to have a good chat with Fujio, but who would have thought that before he could fully open his mouth, someone would grab his wrist. Captain? Lin Feng wasn't afraid of anyone. Other than Qin Mo, no one wanted to understand their captain's methods. Most importantly, he didn't understand why their captain's eyes were so cold. "I remember that you haven't done the hand speed training I gave you today." Qin Mo's deep voice didn't reveal any emotions. Lin Feng froze. "No, Captain, we don't need to train today, right? Others don't need it." Qin Mo glanced at the hand that was holding on to the youngsters. He lifted the corner of his lips and said coldly, "You use it." Lin Feng. He really wanted to ask why. However, the captain had never been one to like being asked why. Usually, those who questioned the captain's decision would only end up worse off. For example, Coco and Fatty were still performing for the entire team. So it was better to offend a villain than to offend the captain. With tears in his eyes, Lin Feng turned his head to the side and began to practice his hand speed. Seeing him like this, everyone laughed. The atmosphere in Supreme Alliance was great, and they got along well. Since they had decided what to eat, Secretary Liang would definitely order the food. There was still half an hour before they left. Qin Emo reached out and pulled the young man's collar over, pressing him into the seat next to him. His side profile was noble and handsome. Fu Jio was still a little confused, but it didn't affect her innate ability to seduce people. She looked up at Qin Emo and gave him a seductive smile. Qin Emo couldn't be bothered to lecture the youngster anymore. He pulled out the black leather chair and leaned over to turn on the computer screen. His voice was low and magnetic. Everyone go online and celebrate online. The celebration that Almighty Qin mentioned was definitely not a normal celebration. Hence, after hearing this, all the Supreme Alliance members' eyes lit up. Swoosh! All the team members pulled out their black leather chairs at the same time and sat in their respective seats. Every single one of them was wearing a specially made pure black combat suit. At that moment, Shui Yaoyao only felt the word handsome. Click. At the same time, he pressed the enter key and went online. His speed was so professional that it was shocking. It was a full set of alien computers, equipped with a large display screen. When typing on the red axis keyboard, there was a flash of light. It only took a second. Zone C of the hero exploded. Holy sh*T. What did I see? Yin Hu, Lin Feng, and Almighty Qin. What's going on with Supreme Alliance? Almost all of them came online. Everyone online? This has never happened before, okay? It's really everyone online, and my big spade. The prefix of big spade has changed. It had indeed changed. Not only was there a golden stream of light, but there was also a battle suit. Let's go. Qin Emo pulled the earpiece over with one hand and said only one word into the earpiece. The 11 game characters, each holding their own weapons, stood there as if the god of war had arrived. Chapter 244. Shui Yaoyao had never thought that she would be one of them when she watched the league in front of her computer. Until now, when he saw the people lined up on the screen, even the blood in his veins was boiling and heating up. It was impossible to count the number of onlookers. Qin Emo tilted his head, his slender fingers tapping on the keyboard. Only one sentence appeared in the world. Celebrating the rebirth of Supreme Alliance. Those 6 words seemed to belong to him. Indifferent, domineering, shocking the entire server. Then the other players followed. In just 5 minutes, the entire Zone C was flooded with Supreme Alliance's messages. If sound could be heard in the game, they would definitely hear a group of fans screaming, "Almighties! So many Almighties! I feel like I'm going to wake up from my sleep. Quick, take a photo. No photo. Help my big spade do it manually." Celebrating the rebirth of Supreme Alliance. This was a sentence that came from the fans. With the first fan, there would be a second. Then came the third, the fourth. After countless times of celebrating the rebirth of Supreme Alliance, some of the team members even wanted to smash their mouse. Can't you let me play the game happily? They were all professional teams. How could there be such a cruel gap? When they came online just now, no one cared about them at all. It wasn't just Hero that blew up. Even the operators were asking, "What's going on?" All of them came online. There was no news from the Qin Club. "Director, I don't want to talk about news. I just want to count the number of people who refreshed the World Channel today." When the director heard this, he was delighted. "A lot." "Well, director, Boss Phone called us and said that they'll get 70% and we'll get 30%. Otherwise, he'll ask Almighty Qin and the others to go offline." The director took a deep breath and pulled his assistant over. "Tell him his grandmother. I'll agree to it." What a cunning old fox. Feng Yi was indeed cunning. Was it so easy to be a top manager? None of the people under Almighty Qin were easy to manage. They would cause trouble at the slightest disagreement. All the team members came online. Did they know what that meant? Countless endorsement fees. But some people liked the Supreme Alliance because of them. Unrestrained, hot-blooded, not bothering about trifles. Sometimes they didn't care if they got paid or not. If they wanted to appear on camera, they could. For example, today, all of them came online to celebrate with everyone who truly loved Hero. The game was flooded with messages. Everyone in the server was watching. Everyone who played the game felt the incomparable popularity. Some said that this was the charm of Supreme Alliance. Under the leadership of that man, while they were invincible, they did not forget their original intentions. Fujio had never enjoyed such fun before. When she was a hacker in the past, there was only one offline person who helped her with the follow-up work and fake her identity. No one else had ever contacted her. He didn't expect that one day he would be able to fulfill a dream with so many people. Persevering in his beliefs made him so happy. Chapter 245. The impact of Supreme Alliance going online was huge. The most outstanding one was In Wuya's internet cafe. It was really popular. He remembered that during the live broadcast of the selection contest, many players were watching the game in front of their computers. The moment In Wuyao appeared, those who knew the owner of the internet cafe spat out the coke in their mouths. They were so excited that they dragged their friends to the internet cafe to surf the net. Some of the frequent customers of the internet cafe didn't expect that the boss they often joked about was actually In Wuyao, their former idol. As a result, a group of people who liked to play games in internet cafes crazily rushed in. He asked the cashier, "Where's Uncle In?" The cashier was just a university student, the kind that loved to study and had no interest in playing games. Moreover, he was a part-time worker and only liked to read novels, not online games. He didn't know what was going on, so he replied blankly, "The boss isn't back yet." "Why are you looking for the boss?" "Repair the machine." "I can do it too." "Xiaomao machine, they want autographs." Why didn't they recognize him in the past? That was because of the slight adjustments made during the game. Why didn't they recognize that Uncle In was from their Peking University? The feeling of regret and excitement was exactly what they were feeling right now. Feng Yi kept looking at the time on his wrist. Every member of the team couldn't be online for more than 10 minutes. If they continued playing, there would definitely be protests from other teams. Moreover, the National League was coming up. It was better to leave this grand occasion for the first match. Of course, Qin Emo disliked noise even more than Feng Yi. After about 5 minutes, he gestured to the team members beside him. All of you went offline. Unbeknownst to everyone, Supreme Alliance's battle was like an invisible tornado, shocking when it came and disappearing without warning. "This feels great." This sentence was said by Lin Feng. Feng Shang nodded in agreement. His face was flushed. Secretary Liang, who had booked the place, walked over. He smiled at these young team members and said, "Everything is ready. We can go now." "Yay! Barbecue. I love barbecue the most." Lin Feng hooked Yun Hu's neck over as he spoke. Yun Hu looked as though he was helpless against him. He didn't even bother to acknowledge him, allowing the octopus to cling on to him. After playing for so long, Fujio was hungry, not to mention barbecue, which was her favorite. She put one hand in her pocket and pulled Shui Yaoyao up with a faint smile on her face. Qin Emo moved his fingers, removing the earphones on his short black hair. When he turned his head, this was the scene he saw. He smiled at first, but his eyes were cold. Then he rubbed his thin lips with his fingertip. His voice was gentle, magnetic, and pleasing to the ears. "Today Ninth Lord is treating us. Eat to your heart's content." Fujio paused. When did she say she was going to treat? Why did this scene seem so familiar? Not only Fujio, but the other members of the Supreme Alliance were also stunned. Spadesy's treat? Why? Fujio also wanted to ask, so she raised her eyebrows stubbornly. "Brother Emo, we are new members. As the captain, it's not appropriate for me to treat you." Chapter 246. Fujio. Why did that sentence sound so familiar? Shui Yaoyao also paused, silently recalling the conversation with Highness Jiao and herself. Strangely enough, she found out the reason why Almighty Qin wanted Highness Jiao to pay the bill. Then, she looked down at her own hand that was being held by Highness Jiao. She didn't know why, but she felt a chill down her spine. Fortunately, Shui Yaoyao was more attentive as a bystander. She quickly started to save herself and let go of her hand. Qin Emo didn't say much. He reached out with one hand in his trouser pocket and the other dragging the youngster by the back of his collar out of the top floor. Perhaps it was because both of them were too outstanding, but the scene was still very handsome. They were surrounded by male teammates, so they couldn't feel it. As a Fujoshi, Shui Yaoyao's blood was boiling. Although the way Highness Jiao and Almighty Qin got along with each other wasn't intimate, there was a vague sense of oppression and counter-oppression. But because of this, it made people feel that they were different. The players at the side were still discussing. Lin Feng. Come baby Feng. Tell me secretly how your captain offended our captain. Feng Shang recalled how his idol had mentioned sleeping with Almighty Qin in the game. He felt that he couldn't say it, so he shook his head decisively. Lin Feng raised his eyebrows. Even if you don't say it, you've already offended him. Otherwise, Captain wouldn't have let him treat you to a meal. Actually, I kind of know that. Yun Hu, who didn't like to gossip, interrupted. This piqued the interest of the Supreme Alliance members. Why? Big Spade, also known as Fujio, is gay. He openly confessed to Captain in the school cafeteria. Yun Hu was especially serious when he said this, his handsome face solemn and serious. The girls watching the competition also received reliable news that even Fujio had participated in the newcomer competition to woo their captain. Lin Feng. Feng Yi. Yin Wuyao. Everyone. The top floor of the Qin group had never been so quiet. At that moment, he could really hear the sound of the chassis running. Shui Yaoyao saw with her own eyes that Secretary Liang, who hadn't left yet, froze in place. He looked like he was about to cry. Of course, Secretary Liang wanted to cry. The secret he had kept for the president for so long had been exposed. Lin Feng was the first to snap out of his daze. He pondered over this matter and finally came to a conclusion. He reached out and patted Feng Shang's shoulder. Today, I finally understand why Captain treats Big Spade so specially. He wants to keep him by his side and slowly torture him. Do you know what Captain hates the most? No, I don't know. Student Feng is still sad. He refuses to admit that his idol entered the selection contest to chase after Almighty Qin. He completely refuses. Lin Feng answered for him generously. Captain Qin hates gay men the most, especially gay men who have confessed to him. Half a year ago there was what's his name again? Anyway, he's a very popular internet celebrity. He's not bad looking. He wanted to turn Captain Qin gay, but Captain Qin chased him out of 3 provinces. So for the sake of our Supreme Alliance's future, please persuade Big Spade to give up on this idea. Chapter 247. After hearing Feng Shang's words, everyone in the team was shocked, especially Lin Feng, who turned his head and looked at Feng Shang with an expression that said, "You're awesome, my brother." Feng Yi had no choice but to pull his brother to the side and pretended to lecture him. How can you have such thoughts? It's obvious that Spade Z is chasing after young Master Qin. Don't talk nonsense, okay? Especially when we're drinking. Don't ever mention this to young Master Qin. Young Master Qin is narrow-minded and ruthless. His brother wouldn't even know how he died. Feng Shang was still stuttering, and he said seriously, Wasn't it Almighty Qin who dragged my idol away? Obviously he did. Captain probably dragged him away to teach him a lesson. Lin Feng guessed with certainty. In the future, Captain will probably come up with more rules and regulations for Little Spade, such as not allowing him to do this, not allowing him to do that. Little Spade is so handsome, why does he like men? It's fine if he likes men, but the one he's chasing is Captain. Sigh, this is no different from seeking death. Do you know how much Captain hates gays? Although he respected other people's sexual orientation, the premise was that this kind of thing didn't happen to him. If anyone dared to touch him, he wouldn't be able to tolerate it. Besides, Captain was so skilled. Little Spade was hopeless. Even if he wanted to steal a kiss, he wouldn't be able to. He would definitely be beaten up by Captain. But don't worry, Little Shang. I like Little Spade so much that I won't let Captain kill him. Plus, as long as Little Spade doesn't act too obviously, Captain will definitely tolerate him a little. After all, The national competition is coming soon, and Supreme Alliance still needs him. The other team members listened and nodded in agreement. Shui Yaoyao stood there and thought of only one question. If His Highness Jiu stole a kiss from young Master Qin, would young Master Qin really beat him up? Or, no, I can't think like that. Shui Yaoyao patted her blushing face, but her eyes were full of little stars. Ever since they knew that Fu Jiu was going to chase after Qin Mo, everyone in the team was on high alert. They were afraid that Fu Jiu would do something that would anger their captain. If that happened, he would kill her directly. Therefore, they had a plan to completely isolate these two people. Little Spade, go sit beside Sister Yao Yao. You'll be able to shield her from the alcohol later. Lin Feng lowered his voice and said to Fu Jiu. After saying that, he felt that he was so handsome and smart. How could he be so quick-witted? Fu Jiu took off her jacket with one hand and nodded with a faint smile. She had always been gentle to Shui Yaoyao, but seeing the youngster leave his side, Qin Mo's hand that was holding the wine glass paused for a moment. That pair of indifferent eyes looked up emotionlessly. He looked at Fu Jiu, who was 4 people away from him, and the bottom of his eyes became even colder. With that, Yin, who sat beside Qin Mo, when he sat down, the Supreme Alliance general stilled. Was there something wrong with his senses today? Why was his captain so cold? Chapter 248. Fu Jiu turned her fair and handsome face sideways, her silver hair falling behind her ears. She was still looking at the dishes on the menu with her fingertips, completely unaware that something was wrong. She asked Shui Yaoyao softly, "What do you want to eat? Are there any foods you don't like?" "Nope." Shui Yaoyao immediately shook her head. This time Qin Mo laughed. Through the layers of lights in the restaurant, his eyes watched this scene. He tilted his head and lit a cigarette. When the smoke lingered, the coldness intensified. In fact, the two of them were too far away from Qin Mo to be able to sense his aura. Fu Jiu ordered a lot of things. She said to the waiter who was keeping accounts, "Do you have Budweiser for beer?" "Yes." "Give me 30 bottles first. I want the big ones. If it's not enough, I'll ask you to add more. Then give me some ice." "All right." It was normal for a dozen people to drink 30 bottles of beer, but no one would order ice when ordering beer. Therefore, the waiter couldn't help but take another look at the young man. Fu Jiu turned around and raised her eyebrows. "What? No ice?" "Yes." The waiter's heart skipped a beat, and her face immediately turned red. She quickly wrote down the order and walked away shyly. This was not the main point. The main point was that the waiter was a man. The guy was even shy. The members of the Supreme Alliance looked at each other and immediately gave Fu Jiu a thumbs up. "Little Spade, you're really something." Fu Jiu had an epiphany and curled her lips into a smile. "I can't help it." Lin Feng could not hold it in any longer. He turned around and asked Yin Wuyao, "Peking University, how did you get tricked into joining the team by this brat? How can you tolerate him like this?" Yin Wuyao raised his head silently, refusing to comment. "Am I not handsome?" Fu Jiu was asking Shui Yaoyao this question, and she didn't forget to show her seductive smile. Even though she knew it was a woman, Shui Yaoyao still felt like she had been electrocuted. She blushed and nodded. "Look." Fu Jiu tore open the chopsticks and put them in her mouth. She looked at Lin Feng. Lin Feng turned his head and grabbed Yunhu's hand. "I want to beat him up. What should I do? Give me a reason why you want to beat him up." Yunhu's voice was as deep and steady as he was. Lin Feng was very serious. "He's more handsome than me. As long as it's a man here, which of them isn't more handsome than you?" Yunhu caressed his head. "Give up on that idea. You can't beat me up." Fu Jiu, who was listening on the side, couldn't help but smile at Shui Yaoyao, as if they had some kind of tacit understanding. This made Qin Mo, who was sitting in the middle, smile even wider. Then, he raised his hand and extinguished the cigarette in his hand in the ashtray beside him. Yin, who felt his hands turning cold, but he couldn't find a reason. Lin Feng had always been someone who knew how to warm up the crowd. Once the beer was served, he filled everyone's mugs and stood up proudly. "From today onwards, Supreme Alliance has new blood. Let's go to the National League and wipe them all out." Last year, our captain's hand was injured, and we weren't very good either, so we didn't even make it to the semifinals. This year is different. Even if our captain doesn't make a move in the early stages, we can still make it to the semifinals with proper treatment. The Almighty's hand was injured before, and it was still in the treatment period. As someone who had played dungeons with Qin Mo and got the first kill, Fujio really couldn't tell. Chapter 249. His hand was injured, but he could still use a killer move like 3000 knife cutting. If he wasn't injured, how good would he be? Sure enough, you can't look at the Almighty like a normal person. She was able to play the game well because of her natural hand speed and the fact that she had played the game before. But even so, she was still a distance away from the Almighty. If there was a chance, she could find a time to have a 1v1. Fujio thought of this, and something flashed in her mind. For example, the criminal psychology books that the Almighty left at home. She couldn't help but ask, why is Brother Mo's hand injured? This question made Lin Feng pause for a moment, because even he didn't know why his captain's hand was injured. I accidentally touched it. Qin Mo held his wine glass, and his voice sounded casual. With one hand in his pocket, it was easy for people to believe his words. But Fujio wasn't just anyone. After spending some time with him, she knew that the Almighty wasn't a careless person. As a captain of a professional team, the most important thing was one's hands. The Almighty wouldn't let himself get injured, unless it was unavoidable. Fujio thought of this, raised her head, and her eyes met Qin Mo's. It seemed like the Almighty had more secrets than she did. Alright, that's not important. The most important thing is that we are together now, and we will be together in the future. Lin Feng shouted, drink this glass, and we will still be teammates in the next life. Of course, the team members would respond. Everyone had a smile on their faces as they raised their glasses and toasted each other. All the team members were taking care of Shui Yaoyao, asking her to drink less. Shui Yaoyao looked at this scene, and her heart was filled with warmth. Because of her figure and background, she wasn't popular in front of her classmates, especially in front of the guys. She had heard a lot of ugly and disgusting words, including the way that guy frowned when he found out that she had a crush on him. She had never been pampered like a princess. She had a single parent, and she had 2 younger brothers. She had done things that many people her age didn't do. She had tasted things that many people her age didn't. So she learned to grow. Someone said, there are 3 stages of growth in a person's life. The first is when you realize that some things in this world won't go your way. The second is when you will be ridiculed and questioned no matter how hard you try. The third is when you know that you won't succeed, but you will still move forward bravely. She was glad that she had the courage of the third kind. Shui Yaoyao tilted her head and looked at the silver-haired young man who was picking meat for her. If she had not met this person, would she have been like many people who had been drowned in reality, without dreams and a life of mediocrity? She would have had no dreams and would have lived a mediocre life. She would have been ridiculed by others. Shui Yaoyao couldn't help but tilt her head and clink glasses with Fujio. Fujio didn't know what she was thinking. She chuckled and patted her head with her free hand. Girls shouldn't drink so much. Yaoyao really wanted to say, you're a girl too. Chapter 250. Team Flower. Fujio looked at Lin Feng's beautiful face and gave a very pertinent comment. She really suits you. You're prettier than the whole team combined. Lin Feng's tongue had already started to stiffen. Have you ever thought about how we feel about the only girl in our family? I think Yaoyao must be very happy to give you the title of Team Flower. Fujio was still smiling, looking very youthful. Shui Yaoyao didn't say anything, because His Highness Jiu was the best looking. If he changed back to women's clothing, he would definitely be very stunning. At this moment she was a little worried. If he became a member of the Supreme Alliance in the future, how long could he hide the fact that His Highness Jiu was a girl? Fujio saw her looking at him, so he turned his head and raised his eyebrows. What's wrong? Nothing. Shui Yaoyao just started to speak. Almighty Qin, who was sitting at the far end, was playing with the phone in his hand and walking towards them. Shui Yaoyao felt that this scene was familiar. But before she could remind His Highness Gio, Almighty Qin leaned over and put one hand on the back of her chair. He smiled faintly and said in a deep and magnetic voice, "Yao Yao, change seats?" Shui Yao Yao paused. Her fingers were a little nervous. However, she was still very sensible. Besides, as a shipper fan of His Highness Gio and Almighty Qin, she especially liked to see the two of them together. Hence, she gave up her seat without saying anything. Lin Feng was a little confused. Did he drink too much? Why did the captain take the initiative to go over there and sit with little Spade? Who would have thought that? Qin Mo didn't just sit down. He also pulled the young man very close to him and lowered his voice. "What did I tell you?" "Huh." Fujio blinked and smiled. "Yao Yao is a girl, it doesn't count. It's the same for men and women." Qin Mo's voice was very calm. "In the team, the members are not allowed to date. If there is a problem, it will affect the performance of the game. So control your claws." Fujio smiled. "Brother Emo, you can't do this. What if Yao Yao and I really fall in love in the future? Then I'll break your legs." When Qin Emo said this, his smile was very beautiful. It was enough to make any woman, except for Fujio, fall for him instantly. Other people couldn't hear what they were saying, but looking at their posture, it was enough to make people's jaws drop. Lin Feng rubbed his eyes hard. He felt that he had drunk too much and was hallucinating. What is Captain doing? The rest of the team members had complicated expressions on their faces. They felt that they couldn't see through their captain. Yes, they couldn't see through him at all. Fujio, on the other hand, was already used to it. "Brother Emo, we just became teammates, and we will be participating in the National League together in the future. Don't make it so bloody. Breaking your leg won't affect your hand speed. You can still fight." With that, Qin Emo reached out and pulled the youngster up. He said to the team members, "I'll send him back. You guys can continue drinking, but don't forget to gather at the top floor of the company tomorrow morning at 8 a.m. Everyone will fly to Tokyo for impromptu training. If you're 1 minute late, you'll have to do 10 push-ups." Chapter 251. It was extremely cold outside. It was winter in the north and it had rained. After walking out, even breathing could produce a thin layer of white mist. Fujio only felt cold, but her left hand was still warm with someone holding it. Qin Emo walked a few steps and found that the young man wasn't wearing a jacket. He narrowed his deep eyes, took off his uniform, and put it on the young man. This was a sign that the danger was over. Fujio touched her belly. "I want some hot soup." Qin Emo was so angry that he laughed. "You're so disobedient, and you still want so much? As a big brother, shouldn't I give my little brother some rewards?" Fujio chuckled. "I won the competition and got first place as promised." Secretary Liang came out with these two, and after hearing their conversation, he could only look up at the sky silently. These two were too immersed in their roles. Big brother, little brother. Why did he only see ambiguity? Qin Emo looked behind him first. It was obvious that he didn't want Secretary Liang to follow him anymore. Secretary Liang was in a dilemma. CEO Qin had drunk alcohol, and it was easy for him to get drunk. If he left, something would happen between these two. What if CEO Qin turned gay? But if he didn't leave, he didn't have the guts to stay. In fact, Secretary Liang was thinking too much. Qin Emo simply didn't like people following him, especially with Secretary Liang's dirty eyes. It made him wonder if he had made a mistake in his judgment when he looked at Secretary Liang's work ability. After getting rid of the people following him, Qin Emo turned around and looked down at the young man. "What do you want to eat? Tell me, or people will think that I'm abusing you." Fujio was definitely a hot pot lover. Qin Emo looked at the time on his watch. Hot pot at this time? That's right, it's not realistic to eat hot pot at 11. Fujio thought about it and looked at a 24-hour convenience store not far away. "Let's go there, there must be food there. Instant noodles are good too, spicy and spicy." In fact, Qin Emo didn't really go to convenience stores like this, but since his little brother wanted to go, he wouldn't say no. Fujio was like a fish in water in a place like this, and she knew all the good food like the back of her hand. Qin Emo sat on a chair prepared for supper customers. He supported his face with one hand and glanced at the young man who was squatting next to him and picking things. His eyes gradually narrowed. The way he picked things didn't seem like he was a newbie. But when did the young master of the Fu family, who had always been squandering money in Western restaurants and nightclubs, come to a convenience store? After Fujio picked out the instant noodles, she looked up and met the man's deep eyes. Her fingers paused for a moment, and the corners of her mouth curved into a smile. But she didn't say anything. She just took the things and went to pay the bill. He started to be on guard. He knew that he couldn't let his guard down when dealing with the Almighty. Experts in criminal psychology could easily analyze a person's behavior. After Fujio paid, she asked the cashier of the convenience store to pour hot water for her. The cashier was so excited that his hands were trembling. People who didn't know better would think that he was poisoning her. Finally, Fujio knew why his fingers were trembling. You're Spadesy, right? I've watched today's match live. Can you let Almighty Chin sign his name here? I'm a Chin fan. Everything was normal here. But the cashier's last sentence was, you and Almighty Chin are really compatible. Chapter 252. That cashier was obviously more excited because of his idol's approach. But he didn't dare to repeat what he had just said. After all, everyone knew that Almighty Chin didn't like to pair up with other people. Chinemo wasn't that easy to fool. He knocked on the table with his fingers and laughed in a low voice. He said, I heard everything just now, but I don't know the details. What are you afraid of? It's not a big deal. That cashier obviously didn't understand Almighty Chin's two-faced ways. But Fujio, who had suffered a lot, knew. She put down the instant noodles and wanted to give the cashier a secret signal. But Chinemo didn't give Fujio the chance. He reached out his hand and pulled the young man behind him. He said to the cashier in a domineering and pampering way, Go on. The cashier looked at his idol's action and analyzed it. Based on his understanding of his idol over the years, if Almighty Chin didn't like someone, he wouldn't touch that person's hand. But now, not only did his idol touch it, but he was also flirting with it. So, the cashier let go of his worries and became excited. He took out his phone and flipped 2 pages for Chinemo. This is a picture of Spadesy walking towards Almighty Chin when he won today. Everyone said that Almighty Chin and Spadesy are a good match. A good match? A good match? Chinemo frowned, turned his handsome face, and looked at the picture on the phone screen with his deep eyes. The silver-haired young man raised his head and put his hand on Chinemo's hand. His thin lips were still curled up, and he looked quite likable when he was smiling. He was handsome and gentle, not particularly rebellious. It was not easy for someone in puberty to be like this. Chinemo took another look at the photo and didn't say anything. Instead, he glanced at Fujio and said in a casual tone, When did you start eating instant noodles? Fujio raised her eyebrows and laughed. Actually, I've always liked it. It's just that I used to pretend that I liked to eat big meals in front of outsiders. Instant noodles are too strong. Brother Emo, you won't mind, right? Her words were 30% false and 70% true. She had played cops and robbers for so many years, so she knew criminal psychologists very well. She knew the underlying problem behind every question. It wasn't that easy for the Almighty to blow her up. I won't. Chinemo also knew that he couldn't trust this kind of answer. So he ordered a cup of coffee and returned to his original seat with the youngster. This series of actions made the cashier extremely excited. This was the first time that Almighty Chin had been paired with someone. Almighty Chin didn't refuse, although he frowned just now. But he didn't reject it. Did this mean that Almighty Chin didn't object to becoming a couple with Big Spade? Thinking of this, the cashier's eyes were filled with pink bubbles. Not to mention, when she looked at the 2 figures sitting together, she felt that there was a chance. The light rain outside the window had turned into a thin layer of snow, which was beautifully illuminated by the streetlights. This was rare in Rivertown. After all, smog was a common thing in the north. But after the snow, the weather became better. In the wee hours of the night, Fujio used to enjoy sitting in a 24-hour convenience store and looking out the window with her head propped up. Because the convenience store had a good view, she was able to observe everyone, and then come up with a plan to attack, so that she could retreat in time. Chapter 253. Chinmo's low and cold voice rang in her ears. Fujio looked up with a smile. Why do you think so, Brother Mo? This is the best view of the entire street. At the crossroads, the building is directly opposite, and the other two sides are very empty. There are no buildings blocking the way. Sitting here, you can have a panoramic view of the movements in all three directions. Generally, high IQ criminals like to blend in with the crowd like you, and observe the surroundings as if nothing is happening. This is so that they can avoid being questioned by the police, and not be noticed by anyone after they are done with their business. Chinmo's expression was indifferent, making it hard to tell if he was serious, or if he just wanted to chat about this topic. Fujio looked at the steam coming from the instant noodles, and put the plastic fork in her mouth. She smiled like an innocent teenager. Brother Mo, you've watched too many movies. How could criminals in real life be so smart? If they were, the rate of solving cases wouldn't be so low. After all, I can't even find my lost phone. Fujio smiled and said, Brother Mo, you've watched too many movies. Any story that is presented in the form of art comes from real life. Chinmo looked at Fujio with his deep eyes. So be good next to me and don't let me get hold of any evidence, understand? Fujio felt that the Almighty's good this time was completely different from before. It sounded like he was warning her. To be honest, she couldn't help but suspect that the Almighty let her enter the Supreme Alliance for the national competition, and to keep an eye on her. In this case, it was indeed not easy to play dirty tricks. Fujio was a little depressed. Why did she have to be wary of some people, even if she was reborn 100 times? If she was unhappy, she would eat some instant noodles to calm herself down. Chinmo didn't want Fujio to think that he was too controlling as a brother. Even if he was in a good mood when he saw the young man's curled lips, he couldn't go too far. It's not convenient to contact you since you lost your phone. Fly to Tokyo tomorrow, and I'll ask Secretary Liang to choose one for you. Fujio swallowed the noodles in her mouth. I'm just giving an example. I don't lack phones. Where did the Almighty learn to buy something for her whenever he disagreed with her? He must have looked up some strategy again. As if reading the young man's mind, Chinmo suddenly laughed. Why? Aren't all the overbearing CEOs like this in the books you read? Ouyang is very handsome. Fujio was caught off guard. Fujio almost choked on her cold joke. She couldn't let the Almighty read such nonsense again. It was too toxic to learn and apply. But there was no one else other than the Almighty who could tell cold jokes in such a dignified manner. Fujio tilted her head, and only then did she realize that the man had given her his coat. He was only wearing a thin cashmere sweater, and she couldn't tell if he was cold or not. His slender and fair fingers were holding a cup of coffee. It definitely wouldn't be warm. After all, in this weather, the 24-hour convenience store's heater wouldn't be enough at this hour. Fujio thought for a moment, and brought the noodles to Chinmo's mouth. Chinmo paused but didn't reject. In any case, the reason would not change. She was afraid that the youth in his rebellious phase would be too sensitive, and she had just warned him. Therefore, when the young man fed him noodles, he didn't avoid it. Chapter 254. As a single dog cashier, he could only watch Almighty Chin turn his head and bite the noodles Big Spade fed him with his light-colored thin lips. His elegant and handsome side profile was revealed. At that moment, snow was falling from the window, and even the street lights seemed to become soft and beautiful. Both of them were extremely handsome, not only Almighty Chin, but also Spade Z, which made the picture look especially good. This was definitely a good match. A good match that couldn't run away. The cashier seemed to be telling everyone what he was feeling right now, so he raised his hand and secretly took a picture of the two of them without disturbing them. He posted it in the CP fans discussion post and added a comment. Almighty Chin and Big Spade came to our convenience store together, and they are eating instant noodles now. So this is the right way to eat instant noodles. It's so cute, and I can't help but share it with everyone. After posting it, the cashier said in his heart that he hoped Almighty Chin and the others wouldn't blame him. This scene was too exciting. As soon as the picture was posted, the whole page exploded. Hey, Noodles. Almighty Chin? Big Spade? No, I want to see it again. Almighty Chin has never eaten anything given to him by anyone. Last time when Coco gave him potato chips, he rejected them. So Almighty Chin absolutely loves my Big Spade. I just want to say that when I see the picture, my wolf blood is boiling. I hope the officials can release the merchandise soon. I want to buy a small album of Big Spade and Almighty Chin getting along. I don't care how much it costs. This is simply fulfilling the CP fans' dream. Don't tell me that Almighty Chin and Big Spade get along like this in private. I just want to say, single dogs are so cute. Please don't mistreat them. I'm going to drink up this bowl of dog food. Is it a guy or a girl who posted this post? Please post more pictures. I think we shouldn't go too far. Almighty Chin might not want to be a CP with Big Spade. It's never bad to keep a low profile. That's right. Then let's just enjoy the CP post in silence and not post it. Otherwise, it won't be good if we get into trouble. These are the thoughts of true love fans. But there are so many people in the world, and we can never predict what the negative side of a matter will be. At this moment, someone who used to like Spadesy narrowed his eyes as he looked at the photo of the couple. She felt like she had been slapped in the face for mistaking Spadesy. Therefore, she felt that Spadesy's method of proving himself on the spot was too pretentious. He had to use this method to embarrass them. Had he ever considered the feelings of his true fans? Thus, he decisively turned from a fan to a hater. At the bottom of the post he wrote, "You know that Almighty Chin doesn't want to see this kind of post, but you still posted it? Was he delusional? I was puzzled. Why did Spadesy cause so much trouble as soon as he appeared? Did he go crazy from wanting to be famous? Did he tie himself to Almighty Chin to create hype? Have you asked Almighty Chin how he feels?" And when she left this message, she didn't think that she was wrong. For her, this was the truth. The others were just too stupid to think that Spadesy was good in everything. Even the cashier who posted the photo explained to her. Almighty Chin saw this post, and he didn't feel any disgust at the time. Chapter 255. There was a rule on the official esports website. Fans could fantasize about who their idols were. But the official esports website was not the place to talk about this. The hottest topic of discussion here was the upcoming National League. Every team was focused on dealing with the situation. Even many of the commentators were focusing on each team's players and giving comments on them one by one. Such a meaningful analysis post was suddenly overshadowed by a CP post. Of course, it would cause dissatisfaction among people who only liked this game. Moreover, the CP post was still trending. Finally, someone couldn't help but speak up. Those who like Spadesy, please don't post here all the time, okay? Especially this kind of CP post. This is the official website of the national team, and there are other fans here. Can't you have some manners? The picture is good, but as a Chin fan, I just want to say that this kind of hype is a bit too much. I hope Spadesy's fans can stop. I won't comment on this matter now, because according to my understanding of Almighty Chin, he won't allow anyone to feed him noodles if he doesn't want to. But posting here is a mistake. Big Spade. Who is it? I've never heard of him. The FC King of Zone C. His skills are really good, but now it seems that his character, that Black used to like Spadesy very simply. She even bought a ticket to the selection contest just to watch Spadesy's game. She didn't expect to be treated like that. Since Spadesy didn't give her face, she had to expose this matter, so that people could see what kind of person Spadesy was. The post was posted in the wee hours of the morning. It had to be said that this posting time was very advantageous. The official management wasn't here, and they must be sleeping after work at this late hour. Although the company had technicians on duty, managing the direction of the post was not within the scope of their work. The Supreme Alliance was still celebrating, and no one realized that a premeditated bloody storm was coming quietly. The next day before the sun rose, Fengyi received a phone call. Fortunately, he had woken up early that day. The members of the team were going to Tokyo for training, so he naturally had to tag along. Moreover, Feng Shang was going as well, so he was very awake when he picked up his phone. However, when he heard the contents of the call, his brows furrowed deeply. When was the post posted? 2 o'clock in the morning. Mr. Feng, should we communicate with the official website and apologize first? This post is really bad, especially since Spadesy is still a newcomer. It's not good for him to be so high profile. Mr. Feng, when you have time, let him manage his fans. It will be hard for us to deal with this situation. Chapter 256. When Feng Yi said these words, Feng Shang stood behind him. Initially, when he heard the first part, he was very angry and wanted to grab his brother's phone to say something. Until the end, he chose to quietly close the door and continue to tidy up his brother's luggage. Feng Shang had always thought that his brother was very powerful. But now, the pride in his heart had risen to another level because of Feng Yi's words. He was very glad that he had such an elder brother. Although he was in a high position and had to face a lot of material desires every day, he also had to deal with major advertisers, but he had never changed. What is right? If something were to happen, he would do everything that a manager should do to protect her. Previously, Almighty Qin had mentioned that Feng Yi had played a huge part in the Supreme Alliance's development. He did not understand at the time. Did they think that playing games was just a simple game? After getting to know his idol, after experiencing the esports selection contest, and after hearing the phone call today, he understood. The glory we see, there are too many people behind it, and they have given their all to support it. The storm caused by the post was still brewing. Since the person involved was Qin Mo, Feng Yi immediately changed his flight ticket after hanging up. This meant that he would stay in Jiang City and let the members who needed training head to Tokyo first. After arranging everything, the first number he dialed was Qin Mo. Feng Yi's style had always been efficient. Young Master Qin, there's a post here that you need to take a look at. After saying that, he sent the post over through the link. It had been almost 6 hours since the post was posted. Many people expressed their dissatisfaction. Are you kidding me? This is the National Esports official website, not a place for you to fantasize. Honestly, I used to want to see how good Spadesy was, but now I'm not interested at all. Let me make it clear. Almighty Qin isn't someone who likes to copy couples. If you're trying to make fun of him, please don't bring him along. This post is obviously made by Spadesy's fan. What a pity. Spadesy is a guy. How can someone say that he and Almighty Qin are a couple? Don't they feel disgusted? I won't say anything else. Just this post alone is enough to slander Spadesy for life. I'm speechless. How can this kind of person play esports? Supreme Alliance should consider replacing him. No matter how good his skills are, if he doesn't have a good character, it will obviously lower Supreme Alliance's standards. Greetings to Spadesy's entire family bound to the hype. Due to the excessive scolding, some of the netizens' words were not displayed. When Qin Mo saw this, his left hand that was still holding onto the suitcase's handle tightened his fingers, and the suitcase was thrown to the side. Dressed in his uniform, his gaze turned cold. He was like a devil from hell, his entire being filled with bloodlust. Let me handle this. Feng Yi paused. Boss Qin is here? Under normal circumstances, this kind of thing would be handled by the agent. He sent it to CEO Qin, so that CEO Qin could find it. After all, he wasn't sure if young Master Qin was willing to be a couple like this. But now, Chapter 257. As an older brother, if he couldn't even provide the most basic protection, then he would be done for as an older brother. During the esports selection contest, he didn't do anything, because the youngster wanted to solve the current problem by himself. But it was different this time. Beyond the technical level, he had to tell them who was protecting Fujio. The youngster was indeed cunning, and he hid his thoughts deeply. Up until now, he wasn't completely transparent in front of him, but he actually treated him as a younger brother. The youngster didn't do anything out of line. Yesterday he just fed him noodles, but he was slandered to this extent. Then he would tell them whether he was willing to be a CP or not. Qin Mo held his phone in his right hand and turned on the computer next to him with his left hand. A cold smile appeared on the corner of his mouth. Yes. After Feng Yi recovered from the shock, he immediately took action. There was no need to think. Young Master Qin even said such words. It could be seen that young Master Qin did acquiesce to the CP issue. Although young Master Qin acquiesced to the CP issue, Feng Yi felt like the sky was raining red. It wasn't easy to see such a scene in his lifetime. After all, young Master Qin said that if he wanted him to play professional league, he should let him appear less in public. In other words, young Master Qin himself wasn't someone who liked being reported by the media. But according to young Master Qin, he was going to mobilize all of his background forces. Spade Zi's charm was indeed great. Young Master Qin never used his family background to oppress people easily. When young Master Qin first came out, he was also slandered badly. After all, with young Master Qin's character, he didn't want to communicate with his fans, so people could use it against him. Since there were fans of all ages, their thoughts must be different, so it was hard to control some things. At that time, young Master Qin was still as cold as he was now. When he saw someone slandering him, he didn't care about them, and refreshed his ranking. He defeated countless professional players, and until now, he had become an existence that no one could easily shake in the esports scene. Did you just say that there was no more slandering? That was impossible. In the online world, as long as you became a public figure, there would be people who liked you and people who hated you. Even now, there would be people who looked down on young Master Qin's style. But what surprised him was young Master Qin's way of doing things. After all, he had always been indifferent to this kind of thing. He didn't expect that he would solve it so directly. It seemed like this incident had crossed young Master Qin's bottom line. But even Feng Yi didn't know why young Master Qin wanted him to register for Spade Z's official Weibo. Through special means, the official Weibo authentication was usually fast. Moreover, Spade Z was originally part of the Supreme Alliance, so it was even faster to get the authentication from the team. In less than half an hour, Feng Yi settled the matter and handed over the account and password to Qin Mo. However, young Master Qin didn't log into the account. Instead, he said calmly, "Give the official Weibo to Z." "What is my official Weibo account and password?" Feng Yi. Although it was not the time to complain about this, but, Almighty, why did you ask me for the password for your official Weibo account? He had no choice. He knew that young Master Qin hadn't been on Weibo for a year, so he might have forgotten about it. As his manager, he could only send it to the Almighty again. Chapter 258. Once he logged into the official Weibo account, there were basically 10,000 private messages, forwards and @s. Qin Mo didn't look at these things. Instead, he opened the post and found the picture of the two of them eating noodles together. Then he edited the text and posted the latest news. The noodles are not bad, mainly because the person who fed them is very pleasing to the eye. When Qin Mo posted this, he didn't forget to mention the Spade Z official Weibo that Feng Yi had just registered for Fujio. There weren't many words, but it completely showed his stance. Not only did it show his stance, but it also showed that he didn't reject the speculation of this CP. Instead, he was very willing to be copied. He didn't use any tone, and even his words revealed his unique aloofness. But it was just this one message. It directly blasted all the Supreme Alliance members awake. What the F***CK, what's going on? Captain, no wonder you called Little Spade out alone yesterday. So you wanted Little Spade to treat you to instant noodles. Lin Feng was the first to forward the post. His repost further proved that the reason why the two of them were alone yesterday was because of the captain's initiative. It wasn't like the rumor that Spade Z was trying to create hype. Sorry, our Supreme Alliance is the most tightly knit. Don't even think about taking advantage of the loopholes. After Lin Feng posted, Yin Hu immediately followed up. Captain is going crazy because someone important was hurt. Coco and Fatty, who were preparing to register at the southern airport, were next. Although they didn't know what was going on, they had no idea what was happening. Although they didn't know what exactly happened, they had 100% trust in their captain, Boss Qin. Everyone in the Supreme Alliance was reposting Qin Mo's Weibo. Once again, people witnessed the strong and unbreakable cohesion of this young team. In fact, as soon as Qin Mo posted, Weibo exploded. What the F***? I also wanted to ask Lin Feng what happened. Almighty Qin actually posted on Weibo. And it was such a warm post. I was so excited that I wanted to run 2 laps. Almighty Qin's side profile is so handsome. I'm drunk again. I didn't expect to see Almighty Qin post on Weibo in my lifetime. As a Qin fan, I can die in peace. But what did Almighty Qin mean by this? Those who only cared about the competition were confused. I know. Please share the drama. Didn't someone on the official side make a CP post? The people who replied scolded Spadesy badly, saying that he was forcing Almighty Qin to copy the CP. They even said that he was sticking to Almighty Qin. But now it seems like that's not the case. Almighty Qin's words, no matter how I look at it, it seems to be saying that my people are not to be touched. Is this what it means? The CP fans also thought that Almighty Qin meant the same thing. But after the post, they knew that if they continued to say that Spadesy and Almighty Qin were a couple, it would definitely arouse the ire of others. Therefore, they did not make a sound at this time. This was all thanks to an organization of true fans. The true fan had always been an executive who knew about the internet. She was a fujoshi, and she was already old. She had long passed the age of chasing idols and playing games. She dealt with business matters every day. When she first saw Spadesy, she simply felt that this youngster was not bad. But ever since she saw him playing, and how he protected north of Een Mountain, she had become more and more annoyed. Unknowingly, she took a few more glances at the youngster until the video popped up when she searched for Spadesy. She had completely turned from a passerby into a fan. Chapter 259. Sometimes the older you get, the more you miss your younger self. This true love fan was also from an ordinary family, so she understood the bitterness of being born into an ordinary family. When she was young, she had vowed to be a great person. But when she grew up, she realized that there were too many unsatisfactory things in life. She was splashed with dirty water, and she couldn't complain when she was hurt. She always thought that the wound could only be healed after success. In fact, when did she forget the justice she had been waiting for? A youngster who would say something like that was definitely not someone who would tie someone up to copy the CP. She didn't know why there were still people who couldn't understand such simple logic. But she couldn't force anyone. When the wave of comments came out yesterday, she knew something was going to happen. Spadesy was a newcomer. Without understanding Spadesy, too many fans would turn against him under the instigation. This was the most harmful part of this matter. As far as she was concerned, the person who posted might not really like Spadesy, and might even be trying to blacken him. But she couldn't say such words. Once she said it, it would only make the youngster more blackened. The only way was to hug all the true love fans tightly, especially the CP fans. So as soon as Almighty Qin posted on Weibo, this true love fan sent out the most sincere call in the CP building. If you really like Big Spade, control yourself, because a word of abuse at this time will not only lower our quality, but also bring more hate to Big Spade. Now that Almighty Qin has posted on Weibo, we can only forward it and like it, without any comments, and wait for further official news. Agreed. I'll forward it now. After all, if it wasn't for our imagination, Big Spade wouldn't have been labeled as a hype. I've learned my lesson, and will definitely respond to the call of the original poster. I won't say much, just one sentence: I believe in Big Spade. Wait a minute, the group is organizing a siege. I'm a little confused now. Who should I listen to? The true love fan sister was a person with work experience, and after seeing this question, she directly attacked the pros and cons. Is there Big Spade in the group? Or is that group officially authenticated? I don't think so. After reading it, the true fan replied, I can understand how everyone wants to protect Big Spade, but any existence without official certification is blind to a certain extent. In this situation, before Almighty Qin posted on Weibo, Big Spade had already been slandered to death. Now that the situation has finally changed, what we need to do is to support Almighty Qin, not to create unnecessary trouble at this time. I repeat, if you are a true fan, repost Almighty Qin's Weibo with me, and then we will wait for further official news. Alright, I believe you. This was a gamble. In this game, it was fortunate that reason prevailed. As a result, a huge wave of support appeared on Weibo. Everyone, regardless of gender, would add AZ logo when they reposted Qin Mo's post. It was this effective and sensational support that sped up Feng Yi's follow-up work. Originally, he was worried that young Master Qin's Weibo post would cause Little Spade's fans to lose their cool and start a war of words. Chapter 260. The support measures on Weibo were obviously the work of a veteran, so Feng Yi didn't have to worry about public relations. Because no matter how useful public relations was, it couldn't compare to a true fan. The premise was that this true fan had to be rational enough. After this storm, Feng Yi felt that Little Spade would be very popular in the future. Because there were thousands of true fans, but there weren't many true fans who could see the situation clearly and put themselves in their idol's shoes. Just like how it wasn't easy for young Master Qin to have a true fan like him. That's right. Our manager Feng was a fan-turned-manager. When so many people said that Qin Mo only knew how to show off, he believed that the youngster had the capital to be cold. There were too many tricks in esports nowadays. Some people didn't mind buying rotten eggs or lowering their heads to their fans in order to attract fans. But too many people forgot that as long as you could play the game well and didn't do anything that challenged the bottom line of morality, this spirit should be the most important. He still remembered that when he first took young Master Qin in, young Master Qin told him, "I'm in charge of playing the game well. You're in charge of making the team more famous, and then breaking into the national finals." For a club that focused on esports, both aspects were indispensable. But what about fans? Don't we need fans? At that time, he even advised young Master Qin, "Believe me, sometimes we don't need to do anything to protect fans." But at that time, young Master Qin only replied, "Everyone who likes esports knows what they like. I'm an esports player. How to play the game well is what I should do. Although protecting fans can indeed make me popular faster, that's not what I want. In this world, there are things that are earned through hard work. Because of this sentence, he stayed in the Qin group until now. Even though young Master Qin was injured that year and Supreme Alliance didn't win the championship, he was also willing to do so. Perhaps it was because he was getting old. Once he saw the storm on the internet, he thought of the past. Or perhaps Little Spade was really similar to young Master Qin in some aspects, which made him feel hot-blooded again. After looking at Weibo, Feng Yi didn't have any misgivings and went straight to the person in charge of esports. Of course, he wouldn't ask for the poster's registration information. It was illegal, and he wouldn't let anyone search for the poster. In fact, from his point of view, this was a typical case of a fan turning anti-fan. What he needed to do now was to find a loophole in the post and force her to apologize and delete the post. That was the best way to protect Little Spade. So Feng Yi asked 3 questions under the post. 1. Are you a fan of Little Spade or an anti-fan? A true fan wouldn't have come to the official platform to create such a post for Little Spade. 2. If you are a fan, why didn't you delete the post when someone mentioned that posting here is disrespectful and will make everyone hate Little Spade even more? 3. Maybe you didn't notice, but after you posted the photo, 10 minutes later, you followed the thread on the 73rd floor and speculated whether Little Spade was using Almighty Qin to create hype. This kind of behavior clearly showed that you weren't a fan. Chapter 261. Such a strong statement. It directly shocked all the onlookers. Then something even more shocking came out. It was Qin Mo's second Weibo post. That's right. Almighty Qin, who was over 100 years old, actually posted 2 Weibo posts in one day. If we regard the first rule as protecting one's own shortcomings, then the second rule comes straight to the point. Anyone who slandered Spade Z will be held responsible. Instantly, his official Weibo was blown up. That true fan thought it would take a few days of hard work to completely reverse the current situation. But now young Master Qin said this. He was clearly telling everyone, I'll beat whoever plays with Spade Z. This time, the CP fans couldn't bear it anymore. The whole screen was flooded with comments. I just want to say that I want to see the picture of my big spade feeding Almighty Qin noodles again. Almighty Qin, are you sure you aren't giving us CP fans candy? After yesterday, I'll drink this bowl of dog wolf again. It was nothing at first, but unexpectedly, Almighty Qin replied to one of the comments. Yes, candy. He admitted it. Almighty Qin admitted it himself. Who would dare to go back on his words? No one. No one would say that Spade Z maliciously kidnapped Almighty Qin to create hype. The post was also dug out. A black-haired CP post. Everyone was confused at first, but now they were awakened by the questions. Plus, Qin Mo's second Weibo post. Both Spade fans and Qin fans began to ask the person who posted to apologize and delete the post. When the national competition was coming as fans, they only hoped that their idol could fight in perfect condition. It wasn't just the fans of these two teams. Even the fans of the other teams felt that justice was owed to Spade Z. At this time, the young man who was the topic of the discussion had just finished packing his luggage. There was no other way. There were too many candies and instant noodles, and there was a nagging housekeeper behind her, which directly affected Fujio's efficiency. Young master, I have to go with you. What if you really want to sleep with Almighty Qin? If I'm here, I can at least stop you. Fujio yawned, and her silver hair curled up. Even if you're here, I can still sleep with Brother Mo if I want to. What's more, it's to Tokyo. Who's paying for the ticket? I'll pay for it. Chen Xiaodong puffed out his chest. I won't spend a single cent. How about it? Fujio picked up her black leather suitcase. It's not much, because I need money for everything. You're a pro player, so you should have this. Chen Xiaodong was about to cry. Moreover, Madam's company has been doing very well these past 2 days, so she doesn't have time to take care of you. She specifically told me to take good care of young master. Fujio chuckled. Stay at home, and don't let your imagination run wild. That's the best you can do for me. Young master, you are mocking me. Fujio tidied up her silver hair in front of the mirror and raised her pretty eyebrows. You can still understand what I mean. Not bad. Chen Xiaodong. Just as Fujio pushed away the clingy butler and was about to leave for the airport, her phone rang in her pocket. It was Shui Yaoyao. Fujio put one hand in her pocket and curled up her lips. Yaoyao, I'll be there in a moment. Chapter 262. Weibo. Fujio slept late last night and didn't wake up early either. She started packing her things as soon as she opened her eyes, preparing for the training in her best condition. She didn't even have a Weibo account. How could she be tagged? But hearing Shui Yaoyao's voice, Fujio knew something was up. She took out her new laptop and turned it on with one hand. I'm going to register for Weibo. Shui Yaoyao was confused. Register? No need. Boss Feng has already set up Weibo for us. Everyone's phone number is locked and authenticated. So Your Highness Gio, you can just log in with your phone number. As for the password, Boss Feng should have already sent it to you. Fujio tilted her head and looked at her phone screen. There is indeed an unread message. I'll hang up first. See you at the airport. Okay. After Shui Yaoyao hung up, she didn't put down her phone immediately. Instead, she paid attention to Weibo on the way to the airport. Fujio held the laptop in one hand and the suitcase in the other. She didn't waste any time getting in the car. After getting in the car, she turned on the internet hotspot on her phone and logged into Weibo. As soon as she logged in, the first thing she saw were countless ads. Fujio put her left hand against the window and opened those ads with her right hand. Such a blood-boiling scene happened so early in the morning. Has Almighty Qin recognized her as his CP? Thanks to Spade Z, At least he made my idol post on Weibo twice in one day. I want to know how Spadesy will respond now. Spadesy must be shy from Almighty Chin's protection. But I still want to Spadesy. Spadesy too. Little Spade, the Almighty is asking you to eat noodles. Keep it ing. I'll let him too. There had never been a situation like this. An esports player's topic actually appeared in the top 10 searches. And it was still gaining popularity, without any signs of dying down. Only popular idols could enjoy such treatment. But now, everything proved that Chin Mo and Fujio were undoubtedly popular in the esports circle. There were too many people tagging Fujio. Fujio didn't see Chin Mo tagging her at first, but when she clicked on Almighty Chin's homepage she saw nice face, mainly because he looks good. Also, I will hold anyone who slandered Spadesy accountable. These were the two Weibo posts. To be honest, Fujio had never been protected like this in both of her lives. His beautiful thin lips unconsciously rose a little, but he was also very clear that there must be a reason for such a phenomenon. Soon she found the cause. After seeing the post, Fujio's eyes darkened. But she didn't hack the person who posted it. Very simply, this kind of person was not worth her trouble here. That person kept saying that she used to like Spadesy, and that she did this because Spadesy's style disappointed her. She apologized for the post, but she would never like Spadesy again. All of this, Fujio only left one sentence on the post. I play games, not my style. I'm not begging anyone to like me. The existence of this post is disrespectful to other teams. You can hate me if you want, it doesn't matter. Chapter 263. The person being fed looks more pleasing to the eye. Moi. The last sentence made the entire Weibo explode. Especially this message from Fujio. Fujio retweeted Chin Mo's previous Weibo post. And there was even a picture of him feeding her noodles. Chin Mo was indeed very handsome in that picture. His noble and indifferent handsome face was tilted to the side. And there was even a slight smile at the corner of his mouth, which was very rare to see. His slender fingers held Fujio's wrist. His face was fine, and his eyes were deep and beautiful. In fact, if one was a real Chin fan, they would definitely be able to see how much Almighty Chin indulged the young man, who raised his eyebrows and smiled wickedly when he fed him noodles. Spadesy had never posted anything on his official Weibo, which meant that this was the first message Fujio had posted on Weibo. The moment it was sent out, the number of replies below the message exceeded 10. In less than a minute, it broke 100 again. Moi. Are you flirting? As expected of my Big Spade. The girl who posted the post to diss Big Spade. What an embarrassing slap to her face. Big Spade doesn't seem to care about her. Of course not, Big Spade only has eyes for Almighty Chin. Before I saw this Weibo post, I always thought that Almighty Chin was the one and only strong attacker in my mind. Now I have to re-examine this CP relationship. Who is the attacker, and who is the victim? My Big Spade is the attacker. Alright, this is the first time I've ever been a reverse CP. Very good, this is Big Spade. Almighty Chin has never been teased like this before. Moi. I just want to say 3 words. Mwax. Follow me downstairs. Mwax. Chin Mo's screen was flooded with kisses, but he saw the reply he wanted to see the most. He knew how good a certain someone was at flirting. However, when he heard the young man's words, he couldn't help but smile, and the coldness in his eyes dissipated quite a bit. He unlocked his phone and replied, "Where are you?" Spadesy. "On the way to the airport. Where's brother Mo?" "Same. Wait for me at departure tower 1. Spadesy. "Okay." Just like that, the two of them chatted on Weibo unscrupulously. There was simply no one else like this dog wolf. The fans screamed out loud below the stage. Wait a minute. Big Spade is going to travel with Almighty Chin? It can't be a vacation, right? I heard Supreme Alliance is going to Tokyo for training. It's reliable news. But it's so cute to be at the airport. I can already imagine my Big Spade waiting for Almighty Chin at the airport with a suitcase. It's so cute. There must be a lollipop in his mouth, definitely. Wait for Almighty Chin's little Spade. How the fans were right. Fujio was indeed waiting for Almighty Chin, but she didn't pull the suitcase. Instead, She sat on the suitcase, holding the boarding pass she had just changed into. She had already been to Tokyo. As a hacker, she promised to buy some things in the world's most developed electronic city. This time, the team was moving as a team, so they subconsciously looked forward to it. Overall, Fujio was quite relaxed. Chin Emo alighted from the Hummer, his left hand pulling the suitcase, his right hand holding his phone. The moment he walked into the airport, he saw the youngster in this state. Chapter 264. Chin Emo curled his thin lips, lifted his legs and walked over. He patted the young man's head and said calmly, "Let's go." Fujio glanced at Chin Mo's suitcase. "So little. What else do I need to bring besides toiletries and sheets?" Chin Emo asked as he waited for his boarding pass. Fujio was still sitting on the suitcase. Every time Chin Emo walked, she moved forward with her legs and smiled handsomely. "Clothes. Don't forget we have to stay in Tokyo for 3 days. We can buy them when we get there." Chin Emo took the boarding pass. Seeing that the young man was sitting on the suitcase, he pushed it with one hand, so that he could walk forward. Hearing the Almighty's words, Fujio suddenly felt that her identity as a rich person was too shabby. "If you don't even bring clothes, why would you bring sheets?" Chin Emo glanced back at the young man, and his attitude was very cold. No matter how high-end a hotel is, the bed is never clean. This is common sense. Fujio. She felt like she was being mocked again. Chin Emo didn't let the young man walk by himself, nor did he bend over. He just pushed the suitcase with one hand, and handed the boarding pass and ID card to the young man with the other. That scene was so cute, that it was no wonder that the girls on the plane wanted to take a picture of it. But every time the girl raised her phone, the young man would look at her. She could only shout that he was handsome, and her heart was beating fast, so she didn't do it in the end. But some Jiang City local gamers saw that Almighty Chin and Fujio were coming to the airport on Weibo, so they all rushed over to capture them on the spot. Unfortunately, they were too slow. When they arrived at the airport, the two men had already passed the security check. From afar, they saw Lin Feng holding a coffee and talking to Yunhu next to him. There was also Uncle Yin and Shui Yaoyao standing next to him. The Supreme Alliance was required to wear the team uniform. They stood together at the boarding gate, wearing the same jacket with the Supreme Alliance logo on the back. Just like that, it became a special scene in the airport. The wives who were going to Tokyo to shop and travel had already turned back to look at them several times. When Fujio and Chin Emo walked over together, they couldn't help but ask, "What are they doing? Dancing stars? They look like the posters in my girl's house." "You're uncultured again. That's called a Korean group." Yes, that's the word. A Korean group. As the aunties spoke, they secretly sized up Fujio. "This young man is handsome, the type my daughter likes. What's the use of that? No matter how good-looking he is, he's not from China." Fujio heard this and smiled. "Auntie, I'm Chinese. We're not a Korean group, we're an esports team." "Esports team?" The aunties were all confused, indicating that they had never heard of it. But Fujio's answer amused them, and they pulled Fujio along to ask her again. Since she was waiting for her turn, Fujio sat there and chatted with the group of aunts. This made the other members of the team feel helpless. I realized that this kid, from the age of 48 to the age of 8, can instantly become his fan. How can he chat so happily with the aunties? Lin Feng clicked his tongue. I was worried that little Spade would be affected after reading Weibo, but it seems like it's nothing. Chapter 265. Lin Feng chuckled. Are you sure he's in a good mood and not flirting with the aunties? How on earth did he compliment an auntie for looking like she was 18? Yunhu tilted his head and studied him for a long time. Lin Feng took a sip of coffee, furious. That auntie is going to invest in him. But I don't even have a girlfriend. Yunhu fiddled with the boarding pass. This has nothing to do with words, it has to do with looks. Forget about your face. While the team members were still exchanging thoughts, Chin Emo pulled the bewitching youngster back to the team. Familiarize yourself with the hotel address for the last time. Feng Yi will stay in China to deal with the aftermath. Secretary Liang will take over his work. For the next 3 days, you can look for him if you encounter any problems. Coco and Fatty had already boarded the plane. Now check your watch and pass. Qin Mo came from the military compound and had always done things in a military style. Once he spoke, everyone obeyed without any noise. After everything was arranged, the Supreme Alliance officially boarded the plane. 3 days of training and 1 East China international friendly match. The most important was the latter. In Feng Yi's words, the opponent was very strong. During last year's training, they had completely suppressed Supreme Alliance. Moreover, they had recruited a new player king this year and had a high number of first kills on the Tokyo national server. If the current Supreme Alliance couldn't even beat the opponent, they wouldn't be qualified to participate in the National League. In other words, this was a competition to test their qualifications. If they won, Supreme Alliance would receive countless cheers. If they lost again, even if Almighty Qin was there, it would definitely damage their reputation. Most importantly, only people who were familiar with League of Legends knew that if they wanted to be recognized by more people, especially those around them, they had to prove that they weren't playing games as people said, eating and waiting for death, achieving nothing. Translator's thoughts. Uni editor. Most importantly, only people who were familiar with League of Legends knew that if they wanted to be recognized by more people, especially those around them, they had to prove that they weren't playing games for nothing. This was Shui Yaoyao's first time taking a plane. From the moment they took off, she couldn't calm down. She could see the endless clouds from the window seat. She didn't tell anyone that this trip to Tokyo caused many people to criticize her. She lived in a courtyard house, and there would always be people visiting. The benefits of playing a game are so good. It must be a lie. Forget it. Just let her dream. She just doesn't like the job I introduced to her. She thinks we are harming her. This child is so immature. She doesn't even look at her own condition. I won't persuade her anymore. Do what you want. She will regret it in the future. Shui Yaoyao knew that a selection contest couldn't change ordinary people's views. If a real normal person knew that you were playing in a professional team, the first thing they would say to you would be, "If you're so good, why aren't you on TV?" At times like this, she would always be speechless. Shui Yaoyao knew that if she wanted to prove herself, she had to participate in the National League. Because only by standing on the national stage would those people shut up. In fact, even Fujio was the same. Most people in the school would not care about a small selection contest. National competition. Shui Yaoyao wasn't the only one who wanted to go. Yin Wuyao, Feng Shang, Lin Feng, Yin Hu, and all the other team members treated that place as their dream. He wanted to prove that he was not old. He wanted to prove that he could play the game well even if he stuttered. Chapter 266. Jiang City was the capital of China, so it wasn't far from Tokyo. Even though it was an international flight, it only took 4 hours to reach Tokyo. But in just a short 4 hours, the sleepy Fujio put on the eye mask provided by the airline after she got on the plane. She adjusted her seat and tilted her head. Her silver hair fell on the eye mask, and the contrast between the black and white areas was beautiful. Qin Mo arranged the youngster beside him to prevent him from flirting with others. But after seeing Fujio being so obedient, he inexplicably softened his face. When the air stewardess walked over, he put down the magazine and said, "Please bring me a blanket." The air stewardess looked at Qin Mo and blushed. Even though she had seen many handsome guys, it was rare to see one with such a deep and magnetic voice. But obviously, Qin Mo's attention wasn't on the air stewardess at all. No matter how sweet her smile was, he only took the blanket and looked at the youngster's sleeping face. When he turned to the side, he was even closer to the youngster. Qin Mo only paused for a moment and pulled his hand back. But this time, he wasn't reading the business magazine, because the youngster tilted his head and put it on his shoulder. Qin Mo frowned and didn't push him away. It was probably because there was a person sleeping next to him. Qin Mo was affected as well. 10 minutes later, He fell into a light sleep as well. Lin Feng didn't turn his head. He wanted to give little Spade a beef burger, but he saw such an intimate scene. He opened his mouth wide and was stunned for a while. Then, he turned back and asked Yin Hu, "Do you think Captain would give himself to little Spade in order to win the National League?" "You can ask Captain yourself." Yin Hu threw this sentence at him and put on the eye mask, ready to sleep. Lin Feng muttered, "How would I have the guts to ask him myself? I'm not stupid." But it seems that Captain treats little Spade exceptionally well. Captain took him as his little brother. Now that things have come to this is the only explanation I can give. Lin Feng quickly accepted it. "I see. Then it makes sense." Secretary Liang sat beside him and raised his head to look at the cabin. What kind of communication was that? How could they be brothers? However, he would rather be thinking too much. After all, Boss Qin grew up alone. It wasn't strange for him to protect someone he liked and was younger than him. But when he thought of the conversation on Weibo today, Secretary Liang wasn't sure again. Madam and the rest had not returned to China yet. But once they did, they would definitely ask about this matter. Right now, he could only hope that the situation would change when he arrived in Tokyo. After all, he would be able to bump into Miss Liuli's team this time. When Fujio woke up, she took off her blindfold and felt the glare of the sun, which meant that the plane was descending. Chinemo woke up earlier than him. When he saw the youngster open his eyes, he pointed at his shoulder and smiled coldly. "It's all your saliva. What do you think I should do?" "I'll give you my uniform." Fujio smiled at Chinemo, sat up straight, and pretended to take off her coat. "As long as Brother Emo doesn't mind my dirty clothes." Chinemo lifted his thin lips. "Don't use this method. When we reach the hotel, wash the clothes." Fujio. Chapter 267. The Supreme Alliance's hotel was in the center of Tokyo, which was known as the city with the most advanced electronic technology in the world. Here, they didn't discriminate against esports games or voice actors. They chose this place to train so that the team members could better integrate into the environment. The streets were very clean, and the people walking back and forth were all speaking Japanese, which made people feel like they were in a manga world. But when they arrived at the hotel lobby, there was a very awkward problem. No matter how rich the Supreme Alliance was, they only booked a double standard room for 2 people. It was impossible for each person to stay in one room. After hearing this news, Fujio raised her eyebrows and squinted her beautiful eyes, but her expression didn't change. After the incident at the convenience store, she already knew how good this god was at analyzing people, so she didn't stand up to speak immediately. But when Shui Yaoyao looked up, her heart skipped a beat. 2 people sleeping in one room for 3 days? What about His Highness Jiao? No matter who she slept with, it wouldn't be very convenient, right? What if her secret was found out? Thinking of this, Shui Yaoyao looked in Fujio's direction. Fujio was also looking at her. Her fingers moved a little, but it was very small. Shui Yaoyao was a smart girl. She turned her eyes and said to Secretary Liang, "I'm timid, and I don't dare to sleep alone. Can you arrange for me to sleep with His Highness Jiao? We are familiar with each other and I trust His Highness Jiao." This sudden suggestion made all the team members put down their luggage and look at her in astonishment. Sister Yaoyao wanted to share a room with little Spade? Man and woman in the same room. So open. Even Qin Mo's left hand, which was holding the room card, paused for a second. When he raised his eyebrows, he was already a little cold. Feng Shang stuttered even harder. What did you say? You let my idol sleep with you?" Lin Feng also had a naughty smile on his face. "Sister Yao, you can do it. You can do whatever you want with little Spade. You can even kiss him." Shui Yaoyao's cute apple face turned red, but she didn't back down on this issue. She just didn't know what to say. Fujio walked over with one hand in her pocket and the other on Shui Yaoyao's shoulder. She smiled and said, "Don't talk nonsense. Sister Yao needs to find a boyfriend in the future, but she's really afraid of the dark. Even if she's afraid of the dark, a girl's reputation will be affected if a man and a woman live together." Chinemo walked over and interrupted the youngster with a cold voice. Fujio smiled. I agree with this. So please take care of little sister Yao, and find a beautiful woman to sleep with her. As for me, I'll share a room with my baby Feng. Fujio turned her head, and winked at Feng Shang with her left eye. Feng Shang was overjoyed. Just as he was about to speak, the room is ready. You and I will share a room. Qin Mo's presence at this moment gave people an indescribable sense of oppression. It was obvious that he was talking to Fujio. Feng Shang panicked. I'll trade with Almighty Qin. Qin Mo laughed softly, turning back to look at Feng Shang. His deep gaze was especially gentle, but his words were cold. Second young master, I can guide your idol in gaming, can you? Chapter 268. With his skill level, he really couldn't guide his idol in gaming. Feng Shang stuttered and couldn't retort at all. From his perspective, he felt that Almighty Qin was being a bit shameless, using this kind of thing to pressure him. How could an almighty compete with a newbie like him? But it was obvious that Qin Mo was embarrassed. The National League is around the corner. Your idol is the rookie king of the Qin group. If he doesn't show some results, he will embarrass the Supreme Alliance. Fujio heard this and expressed that she was the main character. I can practice in my room. It's just leveling up, no problem. Are you sure you're leveling up and not flirting? Qin Mo lifted the corners of his lips, his voice faint. I've already destroyed your credibility. Don't talk so much nonsense. Take your luggage and follow me upstairs. Fujio roughly knew that once the Almighty had decided on something, no one else could change his mind. And it was true that before they came, the Almighty did say that he wanted to give her a private room, but he never said that they were going to sleep in the same room. If she slept in the same room with anyone, she was confident that she could completely hide it from the other party. But to sleep in the same room with a god, as someone who studied criminal psychology, she wasn't sure what kind of tricks the god would suddenly throw at her. What? Unwilling? Qin Mo stopped in his tracks. With his luggage in his hands, he turned back and looked at her with a faint smile. There was no warmth in his eyes. Fujio insisted. I'll share a room with Feng Shang. I'll ask Brother Mo for guidance later. Qin Mo took a deep look at Fujio, and his voice turned cold. Up to you. Then he turned around in an extremely cold manner. Although Fujio knew that her two rejections were hurtful, living with the Almighty was indeed dangerous. The members of Supreme Alliance stood there, not daring to speak. After all, the chill emanating from their captain was too obvious. It was so obvious that even someone as slow as Lin Feng could feel the chill on his neck. After Qin Mo left, Lin Feng opened his mouth and patted Fujio's shoulder. Little Spade, big brother admires you. You have to know that no one has ever rejected Captain. You are the first. It's all because Feng Shang wants to sleep with me. Fujio smiled as she glanced in the direction where Qin Mo had disappeared. I'm afraid that if I don't hold on, he will cry. Student Feng. He really isn't that weak. But to be able to sleep with my idol is really too happy. The pajamas he was wearing today were also very handsome. Wearing it, he could lie together with his idol and climb the ladder in his pajamas. He could also give his snacks to his idol and the gold coins in the game. Student Feng was especially excited. Shui Yaoyao looked at Fujio worriedly. Fujio gave her a reassuring look. Baby Feng was too careless to notice anything. Feng Shang really didn't notice anything. He only felt that being able to be so close to his idol in this life was like a pie falling from the sky. Secretary Liang followed Qin Mo into the elevator, so he was the one who felt the coldness the most. Looking at Boss Qin's handsome face, which had obviously turned cold, he really didn't dare to say a word. Qin Mo looked at the number on the elevator indifferently, as though nothing had happened. Chapter 269. He probably didn't expect to be rejected. So once something like this happened, it always made people uncomfortable. Qin Mo narrowed his eyes dangerously. It was very uncomfortable. Secretary Liang was very nervous and didn't dare to say anything. After getting out of the elevator, His phone rang and saved his life. Looking at the tall and noble figure in front of him, Secretary Liang heaved a sigh of relief. He adjusted his breath and said very gently, "Miss Liuli, yes, we are here. Yes, we are still in the hotel. There is no need for lunch. Boss Qin seems a little tired. They're all here for training. Sure. I'll bring them over in the afternoon." After Secretary Liang finished speaking, he met Qin Mo's cold eyes. He hurriedly explained, "Vice President Feng has already arranged the schedule beforehand. The two teams will train together." Qin Mo entered the room and tugged at the collar of his jacket. His voice was cold. "That was in the past. Now that the team has a new member, we'll change it tomorrow." Yes. Secretary Liang also knew that their CEO didn't like to interact with girls. But if he didn't interact with them, he would turn gay. On the other side, Baby Feng was still excited. He looked at Fujio with a red face. "Oh, idol, which bed do you want to sleep on?" "Me?" Fujio lowered her head and threw her school bag away. She looked very handsome. "Either is fine." Baby Feng was very serious. Then I choose to go outside. Bad guys come. I can still protect my idol." Fujio raised her eyebrows and whistled at Feng Shang. "No matter how you look at it, you are the one being protected, right? Baby Feng." He was speechless. That idol you and Almighty Qin, what happened to you two?" Student Feng Shang is still very sensitive in certain areas. Fujio turned her head and laid on the bed with her long legs slightly crossed. "Nothing, I'm fine." "Then, why don't you sleep with Almighty Qin?" "Why? Why do you want to sleep with me?" Feng Shang's intuition tells me that there's something wrong with this. With the lollipop in her mouth, Fujio lowered her head and unzipped it. "You didn't ask for it? Although it's my request, but it's still not right." Thinking about this, Feng Shang smiled. "Is it true that my idol likes me more than Almighty Qin?" "Baby Feng, you're thinking too much. Almighty Qin is too handsome. I'm afraid that if we stay together at night, I won't be able to resist sleeping with him. What if he beats me up? How inappropriate." Did this mean that he had no value in sleeping with her? Feng Shang was unconvinced. I'm not bad looking." "That's true." Fujio agreed. "But even if I sleep with you, you will only be suppressed. You won't be able to beat me, so it's relatively safer." Feng Shang was speechless. Why was he always the one being suppressed? Unhappy? There's a message in the WeChat group. Fujio glanced sideways at the phone screen. "Gather downstairs in an hour. We're going to the training center." After reading this sentence, Fujio looked up and smiled lightly. "All right, let's pack up. We're going to meet the friendly team in a bit. I heard they're all girls." Chapter 270. Fujio stopped playing with the rhythm master. She looked up and replied slowly, "Lin Feng, believe me, as long as Brother Mo is around, you don't need to care about how cool you are. Even if you are as beautiful as a fairy, you will only attract men. Girls won't look at you." Lin Feng. This was a critical hit. Yun, who followed behind him, and gave Fujio a thumbs up, giving her a thumbs up. Fujio was still wearing a black mask when they gathered downstairs. The weather in Tokyo wasn't that warm. In Jiang City, the mask could prevent the smog, and it could keep her warm outside. Those guys from the Supreme Alliance looked like they had just taken a shower. Their hair must have been blown by the wind. Even Uncle Ian had put a lot of mousse on his head. This was Tokyo. If they were in Jiang City, they would be covered in dirt after going out for a walk. Apart from Qin Mo, the only normal person was Shui Yaoyao. Of course, there was also Fujio. In fact, Fujio didn't understand what was going on with his teammates. She turned around and asked Shui Yaoyao. "They don't look like they are going to meet a friendly team. They look like they are going on a blind date." Even Baby Feng took off his glasses seriously and put on a pair of brown contact lenses. He looked more than twice as handsome in an instant. Is there a need to go through so much trouble? Fujio waited for Baby Feng to wash his hair for 30 minutes, which is as long as a young girl needs to put on makeup. Lin Feng glanced at Fujio and acted like an experienced person. "Little Spade, you don't understand. If you don't dress up when you stand beside Captain, you won't be remembered at all. Moreover, our friendly team is Callie. Think about it. Don't you think this is the most important factor in your life, to get rid of being single? Fujio repeated the two words, and there was only one sentence in her eyes. I don't know them. All the team members, including Shui Yaoyao, looked at Fujio in surprise. No way, little spade, you don't know Callie when you play hero? The expression on Lin Feng's face almost became a highlight. They are so famous, especially in the hearts of us otakus. They are simply a concentration camp for goddesses. Fujio laughed and took off her mask. She pointed at her face and said, You don't deserve to be an otaku with your looks. Otaku have their own standards for looks. I'm so handsome, so forget it. Lin Feng. Damn it, the second wave of attacks. Yes, you're the most handsome. Lin Feng really wanted to drag this guy over and beat him up. But no matter what, it's weird that you don't know Carly. Everyone who follows Hero should know her. Fujio glanced at Chin Mo, who hadn't spoken to her all this time, and suddenly curled up her thin lips. I've only heard of Almighty Chin. I've never heard of anyone else. Lin Feng. Yin Hu, Secretary Liang. At this time, people suddenly remembered the news that Little Spade was playing games to chase after Captain. Now it seemed that it was true. When Chin Mo heard this, he lifted his eyes faintly. His eyes were cold, and his voice was low. Do you believe him? Otherwise, why wouldn't a player of Hero know about the Kali Goddess squad? Chapter 271. Brother Mo, if you don't say it out loud, we can still be friends. When Fujio first started playing games, it was indeed to earn some pocket money. Now that she was participating in the national competition, it was also to help He Honghua take back the company. Fujio's words sounded unbelievable to the others. The new player King in Zone C playing Hero was actually an accident. What was going on? Fujio looked at everyone's eyes on her and smiled again. But since we decided to play, we will do our best. Our goal is the national competition, right? Lin Feng was still confused. Then what did you want to do at the beginning? Get so many first clears in Zone C? Make money. Fu Zhongyi removed me from the Fu family. My mom's company is in trouble. If we don't make money, our villa will be bought. I can't let that third will get what he wants. First, I need a sum of money. It's quite profitable to help people in games. Fujio was telling the truth. Feng Shang looked at her with a pitiful face. Oh idol, I didn't know you were so poor. Fujio. Did she look poor? She couldn't play with these rich second generations anymore. After hearing this, Shui Yaoyao looked at Fujio in a different light. She never thought that His Highness Jiu would have to deal with all this. She thought that with the Fu family's power, at least His Highness Jiu wouldn't have to make money by himself. But now that she thought about it, if the Fu family didn't have any problems, His Highness Jiu wouldn't have to pretend to be a boy. Maybe it was because His Highness Jiu was so cool and handsome that people forgot that she actually had to shoulder the same burden as everyone else. She was indeed confused. Only people who had been treated unfairly would say those words in front of the media. Fujio saw Shui Yaoyao looking at her, so she looked over and raised her eyebrows. Then she smiled again, looking handsome and gentle. Shui Yaoyao felt her heart melt at that moment. She had found the existence of a benchmark. Okay, let's go out. The business car is here. Secretary Liang basically took over Feng Yi's work. In fact, it was a bit of a waste to let a CEO's secretary do these things. But to ensure that Boss Qin didn't become gay, he had to follow him without anyone else's help. The Qin group was indeed rich. They even chose a top-notch brand for their business car. It was a pure black model that was very comfortable to sit in. Fujio didn't move immediately. Instead, she put half of the yen in her pocket into Shui Yaoyao's palm. After everyone got into the MPV. Buy whatever you like. Tokyo is a shopping paradise for women. You probably haven't had time to exchange it for Japanese currency. Shui Yaoyao opened her mouth to reject. Fujio pulled her hand over and dragged her into the car. You can return it to me later, okay? Lin Feng sat in the huge commercial car. When he saw this scene, he couldn't help but rub his chin. Why do I feel that Little Spade treats little sister Yao exceptionally well? Didn't you say Supreme Alliance only has one girl, and we have to cherish her? Yinhu didn't mind. Lin Feng was still mumbling. That's different. Anyway, it's exceptionally good. I can't really describe it. You're tuning in to the Li Mei's Sword of Destiny YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.